Picture this. A private jet slices through the sky, champagne glasses clinking in the cabin, the bass of a new track booming through hidden speakers. Below, a city glows like $1 million jewel box. This is how most people imagine freedom, the kind of freedom Drake or Kanye could wake up to every morning. Now picture something else. An old man in Nebraska, no chains around his neck, no entourage, he eats the same McDonald's breakfast almost every day. He drives himself to work, in a car that wouldn't even make it onto the first page of a rapper's Instagram. And yet, this man, Warren Buffett, could buy and sell most cities in the world without blinking. Two worlds. Same word, freedom. But are they really the same thing? Drake and Kanye could buy anything. They could live anywhere. They could disappear into a different life tomorrow if they wanted to. But Buffett, he could do all of that too. Yet he chooses not to. He chooses the ordinary. And that's where the paradox starts. Because what if the people who look the freest are actually trapped, and the people who look the most ordinary, the most boring, are the ones who have unlocked a kind of freedom money can't fake? That's the story I want to tell you today. Not the flashy headlines, not the flexes on social media, but the truth, the uncomfortable, often invisible truth, about money and freedom. Let's rewind for a second. Drake once said in an interview, "Everybody dies but not everybody lives." It sounds like a motivational poster, but if you read between the lines, he's talking about freedom, living on your own terms, escaping the grind. But here's the thing. What happens when living becomes another grind? The endless tours, the pressure to stay relevant, the brand deals, the teams of people whose livelihoods depend on you being Drake. It's freedom that looks like freedom, but feels like a cage. Now compare that to Buffett. He wakes up when he wants, reads what he wants, invests in what he wants. Nobody's forcing him to drop a new album every quarter. Nobody's waiting for him to reinvent himself. He lives in a bubble of self-created freedom so thick that the world could be burning, and he'd still be sitting at his desk reading annual reports like nothing happened. Two kinds of freedom. One that burns hot but fast, one that looks dull but lasts decades. And this is where we have to ask the question that's been haunting people since the beginning of wealth. Is freedom about more? More money, more choices, more access, or is it about less? Less pressure, less noise, less need to perform. Think about Kanye for a moment. The man has built empires out of music, fashion, design. He's one of the few artists who can reinvent himself again and again, and the world pays attention every single time. That's freedom, right? To do whatever you want, however you want. But Kanye himself has admitted, sometimes that very freedom becomes chaos. Too many choices, too many yes men, too much pressure to keep creating at a scale nobody else could even imagine. It's like standing on top of the world but realizing the air is so thin you can barely breathe. Buffett, meanwhile, has been doing the same thing for 70 years. Same city, same house, same company. And yet, people call him the most successful investor who's ever lived. His version of freedom isn't about reinvention, it's about repetition, stability, a kind of boring consistency that quietly builds an empire. So here we are, three men, three different versions of freedom. Drake, the image of effortless cool, freedom bought with visibility. Kanye, the rebel, freedom as creativity without limits. Buffett, the quiet king, freedom as simplicity and control. And yet all of them, at some point, have struggled with the same invisible truth. Money can buy comfort, but it can't guarantee freedom. Let's pause here because I want you to feel this. Imagine you're Drake for a day. You wake up in a mansion bigger than most hotels. You open your phone and millions of people are waiting for a new song, a new photo, a new hint of your life. Every move you make is recorded, dissected, turned into headlines. Freedom? Maybe. But also surveillance, pressure, obligation. Now imagine you're Buffett. You wake up in your modest house in Omaha. No paparazzi outside, no fans waiting for an update. You grab a Coke, flip through a newspaper and nobody bothers you. You could vanish for weeks and the world wouldn't care. That, right there, is freedom. And yet, the irony? Most people would choose Drake's life in a heartbeat. The jet, the clothes, the fame, because it looks free. But the truth about freedom is, it doesn't always look like what you think. Sometimes it looks like an old man in a regular car driving to McDonald's. Here's where the tension really builds. If freedom isn't what it looks like, then what is it? Is it control over your time? Is it the ability to say no without fear? Is it anonymity, the luxury of not being watched? For Drake, Kanye, and Buffett, the answer is different. But the pattern underneath is the same. Freedom comes when money stops being about showing the world who you are, and starts being about protecting who you really want to be. That's why Buffett doesn't care about yachts or private jets. He doesn't need them to prove anything. His money isn't a stage, it's a shield. A wall between him and the demands of the world. For Drake and Kanye, money built the stage. It gave them megaphones so loud the entire world had to listen, but those megaphones never turn off, and that's the catch. Money can amplify you, but it can also trap you inside the very thing it creates. So let me leave you with this image. Drake, in a diamond-encrusted watch, surrounded by flashing lights, every eye on him. Kanye building new worlds, fighting to control the narrative of his own genius. And Buffett, sitting quietly in Omaha, eating a simple meal while billions of dollars move invisibly under his command. 3 men, 3 versions of freedom. But here's the truth, one that nobody really tells you. The ultimate freedom is not the jet, the fame, or even the billions. It's the ability to wake up and live without needing anyone's permission. And that, more than anything, is the truth about money and freedom. But here's the thing about freedom, it's not just what you can do, it's what you're willing to walk away from. Let's go back to Drake. There's this famous story. In the middle of one of his biggest tours, Drake said he sometimes fantasized about disappearing, just vanishing from the spotlight. Because the weight of being Drake never turns off. The fame, the money, the women, it's like living inside a golden cage. Beautiful, polished, but still a cage. And that's the paradox. The very thing that gave him freedom, the music, the money, also chained him to an image he couldn't escape. Now contrast that with Buffett. Buffett could have moved to New York, bought a skyscraper office, filled his calendar with glamorous meetings. He didn't, he stayed in Omaha. Why? Because he understood a truth most of us ignore. Geography is freedom. By staying away from Wall Street, he stayed away from noise, away from the game of who looks richest, and that gave him the power to think clearly. Discipline versus indulgence, noise versus silence. 2 roads, same word, freedom. But let me tell you about Kanye because this is where the story gets interesting. Kanye has always chased freedom through creation. Every album, reinvention, every fashion drop, rebellion. But here's the catch. Freedom through creation comes at a cost. You're free to imagine anything, but you're also chained to the demand of always being new, always being bigger. And then there's the money. When Kanye became a billionaire through Yeezy, it looked like ultimate freedom. He'd beaten the music industry. He'd built something bigger than albums. But what he did next changes everything. Because instead of protecting that freedom, he kept pushing it further, into politics, into controversy, into battles that drained more than they gave. The empire gave him a platform, but the platform demanded a performance. And once again, freedom started looking suspiciously like a prison. Here's where we have to pause and ask, why does this happen? Why do the richest, most powerful people in the world often end up less free than the guy living quietly down the street? The answer is simpler than you think. Freedom is not about what you add, it's about what you subtract. Buffett subtracts noise, no entourage, no constant reinvention, no need to prove, and that subtraction gives him space, mental, emotional, spiritual space. Drake adds, Kanye adds, more deals, more art, more spotlight. But every addition also adds a chain. And the more chains you carry, the harder it is to move, even if those chains are made of gold. Now let me make this real for you. Think about your own life. Maybe you dream of driving a nicer car, wearing designer clothes, posting pictures that make people say, wow, they've made it. That's natural. We all crave recognition. But here's the danger. Once you buy the car, once you buy the clothes, you don't just own them. They own you. The car needs insurance. The clothes need updating. The lifestyle needs maintenance. Suddenly, freedom doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It feels like obligation. That's the invisible trap Drake and Kanye wrestle with at a massive scale. The more you show, the more you owe. Buffett, on the other hand, strips it all away. He eats McDonald's because it's simple. He drives himself because it's simple. He lives in the same house because it's simple. Simplicity isn't poverty, it's power. But here's the twist. Freedom through subtraction doesn't look sexy. It doesn't trend on Instagram. Nobody double taps a picture of Buffett eating an Egg McMuffin. But that's exactly why it works. He's not performing, he's living. And maybe that's the scariest question of all. Are you living your life, or are you performing your life? Let's circle back to Drake. For all the pressure, he's also made choices that protect pieces of freedom. He's invested in real estate. He's built businesses outside of music. He's quietly creating what Buffett has always had, streams of income that don't depend on constant performance. That's a turning point most people miss. Because real freedom isn't in the spotlight, it's in the shadows, the investments, the assets, the safety nets that don't get likes but buy you peace. Kanye too. For all the chaos, the Yeezy brand showed us something powerful. When you build instead of just consume, you get closer to freedom. Even if his execution burned bridges, the idea behind it is timeless. Owning beats renting, building beats begging, but then, the lesson hits again. Build too much on the stage, and the stage demands blood. Build quietly, and you can step off whenever you want. And that brings us to the real heart of the story. Freedom is not a finish line, it's a daily choice. Every time Drake chooses to tour again instead of resting, that's a choice. Every time Kanye throws himself into another project, that's a choice. Every time Buffett says no to noise and yes to the same boring routine, that's a choice. Freedom doesn't come from having more options, it comes from knowing which ones you'll never take. Let me give you an image to hold on to. Picture two doors. Behind the first, endless parties, flashing lights, people chanting your name. Behind the second, a quiet room, a stack of books, the sound of your own thoughts. Most people run to the first door. That's Drake. That's Kanye. But the real secret? The second door, the boring one. That's where freedom hides. Because once you're comfortable in that room, nobody can take it away from you. And this is where Buffett wins. Because while the world chases the flashing lights, he keeps choosing the quiet room. Again and again. And by doing so, he builds something stronger than fame, stronger than hype. He builds time. And time, when you really think about it, is the only true currency of freedom. You can buy cars, you can buy houses, you can buy headlines, but if you can't buy back your time, what's it worth? So here's the cliffhanger I'll leave you with. Drake, Kanye, Buffett, three men with billions, three men with influence, three men with choices, and yet, only one of them can disappear tomorrow, live in peace, and never look back. The question is, which version of freedom are you chasing? The one that shines or the one that lasts? Let's go back to that image we started with. A jet slicing through the clouds, the champagne, the music, the world at your feet, and then, an old man in Nebraska sipping a Coke, driving himself to McDonald's. Two pictures, both drenched in money, but only one drenched in freedom, and that's the truth most of us don't want to face. Freedom isn't loud, it doesn't sparkle, it doesn't scream. Real freedom whispers. It's the quiet moment when you wake up and realize, today belongs to me. Not to the boss, not to the headlines, not to the crowd. To me. Drake, Kanye, Buffett, three men, three paths. One shows us the seduction of fame, freedom that glitters but chains you to the spotlight. One shows us the fire of creativity, freedom that explodes but burns as quickly as it shines. And one shows us the discipline of simplicity, freedom that looks boring but endures for a lifetime. So, which is better? Which is right? The truth is, it's not about choosing their path, it's about recognizing the lesson hiding inside each. Drake reminds us, the image of freedom is not the same as the feeling of freedom. Kanye reminds us, creating is powerful but chaos can consume you. Buffett reminds us, freedom doesn't come from addition, it comes from subtraction. And here's the part that matters most. You don't need billions to live this truth. You don't need a private jet. You don't need a fashion empire. You don't need to be the Oracle of Omaha. You just need to ask yourself, every single day, what would I subtract? Subtract one bill you don't need. Subtract one obligation that drains you. Subtract one habit that keeps you chained. Do it again tomorrow, and the day after. And slowly, quietly, without fanfare, you start to carve out a kind of freedom most people never touch. Because freedom isn't one big dramatic leap. It's 1,000 small, repeated choices, 1,000 whispered habits. And when you stack enough of those whispers, they become a roar. So next time you see the flashing lights, the headlines, the flexes, pause. Remember the man in Omaha, driving himself to McDonald's, free in ways no jet can buy. Remember that freedom isn't something you flaunt, it's something you feel. And maybe, just maybe, that's the version of wealth worth chasing. If this story spoke to you, if it made you think differently about money, freedom, and what really matters, stick around. Subscribe, share this with someone you care about, and keep walking with me. Because this journey we're on, it's not about getting richer, it's about getting freer, and that's a road worth traveling together.